Well, co-founder of the Budgit, Oluseun Onibinde, joins us in the studio, now Lagos Studios actually. Well, Oluseun, glad to have you join us on Newsnight. Fine, let's start it this way. From the 2021 performance, the government made more money from non-oil services, but from the estimates for 2022, 3.6 trillion is going to come from oil, 2.13 from non-oil. One would think that the volatility of the oil market, would have meant the federal government to concentrate more on non-oil yielding revenues like tax. What do you think?
It's a shocker for us to see that there is more money expected from the oil sector, considering two things. One is that the oil price benchmark, $57 per barrel, and also don't forget that we have a cap on oil production based on the OPEC decision. So for government to expect 3.16 trillion from that space looks far-fetched. We also know that there's uncertainty around the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, and now that we have impact on public revenues. We don't think, in our own estimate, that the federal government can get as much as that from the oil sector. But we also know that oil prices are trending upwards. But the benchmark price that the federal government have fixed on the production level, we don't see 3 trillion naira being received from that space. We know that the current implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act will free the federal government possibly from funding joint ventures, and those ones might have to raise their funds from the capital market or from other sources. But we also don't think that will have a significant impact to show that kind of jump. But we know that our way out of revenue challenge that the president mentioned is to pay extreme attention on non-oil revenue growth. It's an anomaly for us even to have oil revenue and non-oil revenue dichotomy. As a country, we should have tax revenue and non-tax revenue. That's the way we think and we see it in budget, because taxation is the only way to smoothen the curve of public revenues. Every single time our revenue goes up and down, and the only reason why that keeps happening is because we are dependent heavily on the commodity that is subject to significant volatility. So until we are able to pay more attention on taxation, the reason why we're doing taxation is not just because we need much more rates or maybe higher rates. There's need for a whole tear down of the tax architecture. And there's a lot of pushback from states now saying they want to collect that value added tax, which will lead to a lot of conundrum. But to be honest, that's the way out.
What's your sense of the benchmark of $57 per barrel, with oil inching up to about $80 per barrel, production of 1.88 million barrels per day?
That sounds like a decent benchmark to take. $57 is not bad. But we must understand that there are a lot of factors controlling this. We are in a recovery mode globally, so there's a lot of attention at the energy market. A lot of people want to pump back the industries. And also weather and a whole lot of other factors affect. And if the OPEC lead cuts are relaxed significantly, we know that more production would lead to a significant drop in price. The reality is that Nigeria has to start treating oil prices as a footnote to public resources in Nigeria. The only way out is for the government at all levels to sit down and look at the tax architecture of this country. So as we continue to depend on oil, we'll keep going on to this, what I call sinusoidal curve. We'll be up today and we'll be down tomorrow. Other countries also depend on commodity prices. The UK drills oil. South Africa gets funds from mining. But if you look at their budget, it's much more paid. There's more attention paid to the tax revenue that government gets. And because we have not invested significantly in this space, that's why our tax to GDP is less than 8%. That's why our revenue to GDP is less than 10%. So it's time for us to look inwards and to see how do we engineer growth so that we have a lot of people in the formal market and the formal bracket that can pay taxes. And how do we strengthen tax institutions so that can be more effective in taking more taxes from people? Those are the kind of conversations I just want us to put on the table, because our significant dependence on oil, either for exports earnings or either for public revenues, is really a big disservice to us as a country.
All right, Sean, before I let you go, the president says their target is to grow our revenue to GDP ratio 8% to 15%. This will cause debt service to revenue ratio to be less worrying or not to be worrying at all. Let me quote him. We do not have a debt sustainability problem, but a revenue challenge.
I mean that it looks like a paradox. We do not have a. I mean, when you say debt sustainability, you can't look at it from one lens. The debt to GDP is not the only metric to look at debt sustainability. You have to look at your debt service to revenue. And if you look at most of the reports, I mean, the risk rating report of Nigeria, a significant element is there to look at our debt service to revenue, because you have to compare like for like. And if you're doing 80% or 70% of your debt service of your revenue is used to service debt, it's an anomaly. Check any budget, possibly every decent budget across the world. Debt service is always around 20 to 25% of the revenue. So what we are having right now is not a normal case in any way. And it's just because our revenue is significantly poor. And for the government, president says, oh, we're going to raise from 8% to 15%. Under the current structure that we have right now, it looks like a pipe dream. And let's also not forget that this is the last full budget of the Mr. President. The next budget that is going to present in 2022, for 2023, he would not execute that budget fully. So it looks like a late conversation to have at this point. If we want to really change our revenue matrix as a country, we need to have significant conversation across board around how taxation is collected, around the strength of the institutions at the federal and the state level, also around other issues around which component of the GDP is on tax that we need to tax, or where do we make concessions, where do we make waivers that we have to remove, and how do we ensure that there's strong penalties for not paying taxes. There was a report that says less than 300 Nigerians pay over ₦1 million in taxes in a year. Those are the kind of conversations we now have in the country. That is the only way we can actually grow public revenues, because on the strength of taxation,
all right,
is how governments are able to service
we
the
will
people.
leave it there. Co-founder of the Budgit, Oluseun Onibinde. Thank you for joining us.